Hey everyone, welcome back. In our last video, I talked about what overwhelm actually is, that neurological event, your system overload. Today, we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about the emotional side of overwhelm. This is not a feelings video, because if you watch any of mine, I'm not a touchy-feely kind of person. And I'm not going to say, well, have you tried journaling? Not to, bang on journaling. It has its place. But this is about the specific emotions that hijack your ability to run your business, and why pretending that they don't exist is one of the most expensive mistakes that you can make as an ADHDer. Here's the thing about business culture. It was built for people with neurotypical nervous systems, and those people came up with advice that sounds reasonable, and in theory it is, and it's genuinely damaging practice for a lot of ADHDers and neurodivergent people because it just doesn't work. It doesn't take into account the way your brain is built. Separate your feelings from your work. You just can't. Neurologically impossible when you have an ADHD brain. Emotions and cognition are running on the same hardware. Don't take it personally. Rejection sensitivity makes that feel physically impossible. It's not a choice that you just want to make. If you could just turn it off, you would. You can't. Stay focused on the strategy. That is fantastic advice for someone whose emotions aren't flooding their system. For everyone else, the emotions are the strategy problem. Successful people push through. Suppressing your emotion doesn't make it go away. It makes it cost more because it builds and builds, and we'll get to that. The business world has a blind spot about the way your brain works and how your emotions work, and that's going to cost you. Let's name the specific emotions that show up for neurodivergent entrepreneurs. We're not wallowing in them, but we're recognizing them. Shame is huge. It's the big one. I should be able to handle this. Other people handle this. What's wrong with me? Shame doesn't just feel bad, it drives avoidance. It's why you don't open the email or look at the numbers, you don't respond to a client. Shame tells your brain that engaging with the problem will confirm your worst fear about yourself. So your brain finds every reason not to do the thing. Rejection sensitivity or rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Like the dysphoria is the level up. Even if you're not at RSD, this probably still affects you. This is something that is under-talked for ADHDers pretty often. One criticism, one quiet period where people aren't buying or engaging with you, one sale that didn't happen, and your nervous system registers it as a catastrophic rejection. This doesn't show up as sadness, but it's an intense emotional event that can take hours or maybe even days to come down from. Anticipatory anxiety is the dread that hits before anything else has even gone wrong. You're planning a launch and you're already pre-grieving the failure. Your brain is so good at pattern recognition that it starts trying to protect you from things that haven't happened yet. And that makes you too exhausted to do anything about it. And then finally, we have frustration and rage. The overwhelmed brain doesn't always shut down. Sometimes it explodes. Disproportionate reactions, snapping at people, rage quitting a project that was actually going fine. This is what happens when a nervous system that's been at 90% or greater capacity for too long gets one more thing thrown at it. I want to spend a minute on RSD specifically because I think it's the one that does the most damage for neurodivergent people and gets talked about least in business because business people in general don't understand it. RSD is not about being overly sensitive or dramatic. It's a neurological response. The ADHD brain processes rejection and criticism with a level of intensity that neurotypical brains simply don't experience. In a business context, here's what it might look like. A prospect replies with a "not right now," and you go into a shame spiral for 3 hours, convinced that your entire offer is broken. You get zeroed sales on a launch day and it feels like a slow start. It feels less like a slow start and more like every person you know is actively rejecting you. A client who's a little quieter than usual, your brain is already creating their refund request. Someone gives you a perfectly reasonable feedback on your content, your nervous system hears you're not good enough to do this. We know that these reactions aren't logical, but they're also completely real. They can take you offline for hours, if not days at a time. That has a huge impact on your business. You cannot rationalize RSD away. You can't think your way out of it in the moment. It has to be worked with, and that starts with understanding what it is. Here's the mechanism. Understanding this is what shifts from I'm broken to I know what's happening. An emotional trigger hits. It doesn't matter if it's big. For an RSD brain, a lukewarm email is enough to trigger it. The amygdala, your brain's threat detector, activates. It's doing its job. It's trying to protect you. That's what your brain is supposed to do. That activation floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for your executive function, the planning, the prioritizing, the decision-making, that goes partly offline. Enough that you can't do it. And that's what we've talked about before, flipping your lid, right? Amygdala, prefrontal cortex. When that happens, your executive function is degraded. The systems you need to respond professionally, to execute your plan, to work the launch, they're running at a reduced capacity. This is why you can sit at your desk, knowing what needs to be done, and be completely unable to do it. It's not that you're lazy or weak. You're experiencing that neurological cascade that your business plan doesn't have a step for. Here's the reframe that I want you to carry. Emotions don't distract you from your work. They are the work because they determine whether or not the work is even possible. The business world sold us an image of a successful entrepreneur who looks that way, a certain way, right? Calm, decisive, executing flawlessly under pressure, never rattled by feedback, never spiraling, always unfazed. Throw anything at them and they can handle it. For a neurodivergent brain, that image is not aspirational. It's a measuring stick built for someone else's nervous system. You can't hold that as this is what I should be because you may never be that. Your brain is wired differently. And what happens when you hold yourself to that standard, every time RSD hits, every time anxiety shows up, every time you lose a day to emotional overwhelm, you add another layer of shame on top of the overwhelm, which makes the overwhelm worse, which makes more shame. It's a horrible cycle that you get stuck in. Comparing your emotional experience of running a business to someone with a neurotypical nervous system isn't a fair comparison. It's not useful data about your capacity. You're running a different operating system, so the benchmarks don't transfer. Let's talk about what emotional overwhelm looks like in a business context. It might be going dark. You disappear from email, from DMs, from your community for days. Not because you don't care, but because your brain registered the whole situation as threatening, and the safest move is removing yourself. Shiny object sprint. We all know how you like those shiny objects, right? Abandoning what you were working on and launching into something new with a ton of energy. This feels like a pivot, but it's usually fleeing from something else, the thing that you should be working on. Compulsive replanning. Completely rewriting your content calendar, your launch plan, your business strategy, instead of executing anything. Planning feels productive because we're busy, we're coming up with the most perfect plan, but a lot of times it's just avoidance. Self-sabotage right before launch. Suddenly realizing 3 days before you go live that your offer is fundamentally broken. Is it really? Probably not. That's RSD trying to preempt the rejection. It's better to quit than to fail. You stop doing things or go in to try and fix things and push off that launch so that you don't have to worry about the rejection. Busy but frozen, working 10-hour days and producing nothing meaningful. All motion, zero output. It looks like effort from the outside. You're in front of your computer, you're typing, you're doing things. You look really, really busy, but you're not really doing what needs to be done. And then numbing out, doom scrolling, overeating, binging, anything that lowers the emotional volume so that you can at least relax a little bit. This is your nervous system trying to regulate by any means available. If you recognize yourself in any of these, you know what emotional overwhelm feels like. You managed the best you could with the tools you have, but now we're going to try and come up with some better ways. Here's what I need you to hear. Ignoring the emotional stuff doesn't make it stop costing you. Your brain isn't a computer that you can pause while you handle business and reboot later. Emotional suppression is active cognitive work. It is taking brain power for you to push that down. So every time you push down RSD or shame or anxiety to stay professional, your brain is burning resources to do that. That's why you can white knuckle your way through a launch feeling nothing and then crash completely when the week is over, because that's where all of your energy went. Suppressed RSD doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It builds. It comes back harder the next time you perceive some kind of failure. And the next time you have a quiet day, the next time you have a lukewarm response, that RSD is even bigger. Emotional avoidance is exhausting in a way that doesn't show up on your to-do list. It's not something that you write down. You may not even recognize that you're doing it. It's why you feel completely drained without having done anything that you can point to. The stuff you don't process, you re-experience it. The same trigger will hit harder every time it comes around if you don't take the time to work through it. That suppression tax is real. It's going to cost you because it's just pulling away at your cognitive capacity all the time. So let me be clear about what I'm not suggesting here. I'm not suggesting that you spend your business hours processing your feelings. I'm not suggesting a gratitude journal is the answer. Gratitude journaling is a good thing. It can help you a lot of other ways, but it's not this. First up, we want to name it to tame it. You have to label the specific emotion you're experiencing so that you can activate that prefrontal cortex, and that will reduce the amygdala activation. I'm in an RSD spiral right now. Say that to yourself. That's a neurological interrupt. You're interrupting that cycle. It changes what your brain does next. Body first, brain second. You cannot think your way out of an emotional flood. Your nervous system has to come down before your executive function comes back online. So get up and move, breathe, shake it out. Shake your hands, your arms. 2 minutes of physical regulation can shift things more than 2 hours of trying to logic your way through it. Have a group of breathing exercises that work for you. Calm your system, and then you can do what you need to do. Next up, permission to not produce. When you're in emotional overwhelm, forcing output often creates work that has to be redone. And that's going to compound the shame, because now you look at it and say, why did I create this shit? It should be better. Sometimes the most productive decision is 20 minutes away from the screen. I'm not talking about giving up and just throwing in the towel. I'm talking about taking a needed break so that you can process what you're doing so that you can go back to work and actually be productive. Build a "this is normal" file. Document the times RSD hit and that you survived it. The launches that felt like a failure but didn't turn out to be. The feedback that stung but turned out to be really useful. Your brain needs evidence. Anxiety runs on worst case projections. So evidence interrupts that pattern. When your anxiety is saying, oh my gosh, this is going to totally flop, you can look to that evidence and say, the last time we thought this and I made some money. Build your evidence file. Stop calling it unprofessional. The business world trained you to see emotional responsiveness as a liability, something that you need to hide and manage and apologize for. I want to offer you something different. Instead of thinking I'm too sensitive to handle rejection, your brain just processes rejection more intensely. That means you have different strategies, not thicker skin. I'm too emotional to be a good CEO. Oh, the lies every woman hears, right? Your emotional awareness is a leadership asset when you have the right infrastructure around it. Plenty of effective leaders are highly emotionally sensitive. The difference is they're not trying to run their businesses like someone else's. They figure out how it works for them. I fall apart under pressure. You hit your barrier, you hit your boundary. Building systems that reduce how often you reach that threshold is your business strategy. I'm not cut out for this. The business model wasn't cut out for your brain. You're going to build a business that is. That's being innovative. doing what you need to do. And here's the practical application. Your business needs emotional infrastructure the same way it needs operating systems. So you need to have some recovery buffer in your schedule. After a launch, after a difficult client call, after getting feedback that you know is going to hit hard, build in time. This is a necessity. Give yourself time for your brain to decompress after those highly emotional events. If you don't plan for it, it's going to happen anyway. Your brain will just do it at a really bad time. Create an I'm in RSD protocol. When you can recognize that it's hitting, a pre-decided sequence for when you're triggered. Write it down when you're calm, okay? Because you can't design this protocol when you're already in the middle of an RSD cycle. Write it now when you're calm. What are you going to do when this hits? Are you going to step away? Are you going to text someone? Are you going to go for a walk? Decide now what you're going to do to break that cycle and have it written down so when it hits, you know what to do. A human who gets it. Not to process every single feeling you ever have, but someone who won't pathologize the intensity when it shows up. A coach, a peer, a community where this is normal, with people who get it. The isolation of being neurodivergent who feels too much can be costly on its own because you're always doing that comparison thing. You need to be around other people who get it. Reduced decisions surfaces after emotional events. So batch your important decisions when you're regulated. Don't price your offers, make hiring decisions, respond to difficult emails when you're in an RSD spiral. Again, pre-decide when you're calm and then execute when, the decision when you're not. Then you're not making the decisions, you're just executing. Here's your one thing for today. Write down the one emotion that most often shuts down your execution. Is it shame? Is it RSD? Is it anticipatory anxiety? Is it rage? Just naming it and actually writing it down starts to move from I'm broken to this is the thing that happens and I can build around it. That's the point of what we're doing here. You're not fixing a broken brain. You're building a business that works with how your brain works. If this was helpful for you, please like, subscribe, share it with someone else. I will see you in the next one as we talk about more about how to handle emotion in your business.